adopted and budget. The difference between the two. We're talking.
Encumbrances. The rollover. The encumbrances for the rollover.
Good morning, everyone.
The
Morning. We got the Apple crew this morning. It's good to see everyone. Birmingham 1-0 on their USFL. How about that? With a great crowd on Saturday night. Glad to see everyone that was there. Good things happen when we work together, guys. Always. A lot of people didn't begin this meeting. Come on in.
Thank you.
Begin with a word of prayer. Please bow your head. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, dear Lord, we're so grateful and thankful for our Easter season, the wonderful, beautiful Easter Sunday we had. Dear Lord, thank you so very much for giving us your only begotten Son, so that he may die on the cross for our sins. Dear Lord, as we are about to partake the business of Jefferson County today, Lord, we ask that you be with us and touch each of us with your heart, so that we may do the things that are pleasing to you and to the citizens of Jefferson County. Dear Lord, we ask that you give us the wisdom, strength, courage, and guidance. Lord, give us the spirit and the will to work together for your good. Dear Lord, we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Thank you. Let's begin with Commissioner Hammonds.
Thanks, sir. I know we got a lot on the agenda, so, but first, since Commissioner Knight's not here, I'm going to ask Zach to introduce the new member of their staff.
Okay, this is Mason Carrial. She's obviously very new to the office. From Moody, lived in Mobile for a while, and moved back to Birmingham here recently for the position, and we're happy to have her. And she's been not a jerk so far, so that's good.
All right. Thank you. For information technology and economic development, we have two items under economic development. The first one is TWG Brownfield Tax Abatement. This is a multifamily development. The reason that we're looking at it is because it is a brownfield, and we'll take a property that is going to have a $1.5 million cleanup that will actually start releasing revenue. So I'm going to turn it over to Trey Hill, who is their attorney. Where's Trey? Oh, there he is. And he also has Neil Burnworth with him from TWG Development.
Thank you, Commissioner Hammonds. Good morning, Commissioners. So, as Steve said, I'm Trey Hill. I'm an economic development attorney with Bradley out here in town. And excited to be here before you this morning on behalf of my client, TWG Development. With me, as Steve said, is Neil Burnworth. So I'd like to turn it over to Neil, if it's okay with the commission, so that he can spend a few minutes just talking about the company and this project.
Commissioners, thank you all very much for having me down from Indianapolis. I do appreciate the invitation as well as your time. I'd like to take this time to talk to you about our development at the tracks, 2400 First Avenue South. We call it the tracks. It's currently on the T.E. Stevens site. There is a commercial multifamily development that we're looking to do. TWG is headquartered in Indianapolis, Indiana. We've been in business since 2007. We have over 100 completed projects with about $1.7 billion in assets, over 10,000 rental units. What we're looking to do here is build a 273 unit multifamily apartment complex on 4 acres of ground. The proposed development will be a 5-story residence. It will also include a full kitchen, fitness center, bicycle, parking, courtyards, 254 parking spaces to be exact. The total capital cost for the project for the tracks has been estimated to be about $60 million. The project's been designed specific window facades to the building, architectural elements to bring out some of the downtown ambiance to that area. Further, this project will connect between the Rotary Trail and the Jones Valley Trail. It will also bring an increase, we hope, restaurants, retail, and entertainment venues to the community. We're looking to service over 320 young and diverse residents throughout the city of Birmingham, to include University of Alabama students, young professionals, and empty nesters.
So as far as the economic impact to the county for this project, in addition to contributing that real vital link between Railroad Park to the west, the south side neighborhood, and on to Avondale, connecting the Rotary Trail and the Jones Valley Trail, as Neil said, it's going to have a tremendous economic impact. It's got about a 23-month construction period, and so we'll crest at about 75 jobs, level off at about 50 jobs throughout the duration of the 23-month construction period. So during construction, that's about 225 jobs. TWG will work in conjunction with their general contractor, TWG Construction, to achieve a participation goal of at least 27% of MWBE inclusion for their subcontractors. And once the project becomes operational, we've got 3 or 4 full-time jobs, 3 or 4 part-time jobs as well. And so over a 10-year period, this project can expect to generate for the county about $2.8 million of direct and indirect property tax, sales and use tax, and sewer impact revenue. It's supported by the city's Department of Innovation and Economic Opportunity, the City Council, and both Budget, Finance, and Economic Development Committees have unanimously approved this project. And the Downtown Redevelopment Authority has approved an incentive there as well. So we've gotten unanimous support up to this point. A couple of the challenges that this site has, Neil alluded to it, Commissioner Ammons did as well. It's got about $1.5 million of environmental remediation and mitigation costs that have to be cleaned up on the site that is the former T.E. Stevens construction site. So it's taking blighted property and it's really turning it into a great use for this property with great visibility from the expressway as depicted in one of these slides. In addition to that $1.5 million environmental cost, we've got about $60,000 or $520,000 for a 60-inch sewer stormwater line that has to be relocated that bisects the site. So what we're here asking the commission to consider approving on Thursday at the commission meeting is a brownfield property tax abatement. And the duration of the abatement would be for non-educational property taxes. The state of Alabama, we're asking the commission to approve a 10-year abatement request. For the city of Birmingham, it would be a 3-year abatement request, and for Jefferson County, it would be a 4-year abatement request. And what that means in property tax savings is that the city's portion of the abatement would be about $620,000. The counties would be about $596,000, and the state would be about $386,000. So when you look at that request as compared to 10-year tax revenue generation that the county is expected to generate, the county can have a 4 times multiplier on those tax abatement dollars that we're asking the county to consider. So with that, I'd love to answer any questions that the commissioners may have.
You know, the city of Birmingham will reap the benefits, much more so than the county will. They will have the residents there operating within the city and buying out using the sales tax dollars. That would go. I was just curious to see how and why we were virtually equal in our payments. It seems like to me it's within the city limits of Birmingham, and they should participate in much greater way than this year.
Well, that's a great point, Commissioner Stevens, and something that I didn't get into is the Downtown Redevelopment Authority. So back in February, the DRA approved a sales and use tax exemption on the purchase of construction materials. So as you know, construction materials purchased in the city of Birmingham generally have a 10% aggregate sales and use tax rate on the purchase of those materials. It's comprised of 4% state, 2% county, and 4% city. So the DRA agreed to approve the entire exemption of the 4% state and the entire exemption of the 4% city, for only 1% of the county's 2%. So dropping it effectively from 10% right down to 1%. What that means in dollars, based on $55 million capital investment the TWG is looking to spend, the DRA sales and use tax savings from the county was about $157,000. From the city, $630,000. Okay, so when you add DRA savings and brownfield abatement savings that we're looking for you guys to approve on Thursday, the city's total incentive would be $1,250,000, and the county's is $753,000. So while the brownfield property tax abatement is similar, it's
Really, it's apples and oranges, so you get one that gets you construct, and then you get your own going, so I understand. But I think that it would be more equitable if Birmingham kicked in a little bit more. We'll do that, or approve it a little bit. Is this an opportunity then?
It is an opportunity.
So you're going to get some additional benefits off that also.
Yes, sir.
That's great. That's great.
Any other questions? Good deal. One of the main reasons it has to come to us is because it is a brownfield. Otherwise, the Birmingham IDB or the DRA would approve it themselves. So great opportunity to see a property that's not producing enough everyone and redeveloping the area to see something come around. So that's normally what we don't do multifamily, but purely because it's a brownfield, that's our reason for consideration. So, any other questions?
Move to the agenda.
A second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Second is Port of Birmingham supply chain analysis. The Port of Birmingham has made a request for support. Previously, they were going to go through with RPC to do an EDA grant. The EDA grant is going to take much longer than anticipated, and they would not be able to start until September, October. By that time, supply chain may have already been redone by that time. So to get ahead of it, made a request from the county and the city of Birmingham, since we both have appointments, to split the cost so they can go ahead and get started on the study process, which hopefully would start by the end of the month.
Move.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is extended our report.
We've got Ted Snyder, John Oros here on the ARPA tourism program up there. I'd like to begin my portion of this meeting, Administrative and Infrastructure Committee, with jumping over to the county manager section of my report and letting them get on, because I know that both of these gentlemen are wide open right now because of what's going on in town. We get them getting in line. Justin, does that mean, I'd like to shift to Jones Beneficiary Farm?
Yeah,
Maybe that's a little bit later.
Actually, I was going to let you know, Amanda with Jones Valley had a family issue come up today, so we're going to reschedule her for another time.
All right, we'll take that one on.
And I think she's got a couple other issues working with a couple of district officers anyway, so it may even work out better to have her when those come up as well, so we can kind of cover everything at once. If y'all want to get started on the tourism piece, we'll do that. I really enjoyed speaking up there last week, but Helen said that she can't see me on camera, so I'm here. I really didn't want to be on camera, so that was fine with me. But anyway, just to give a quick reminder, we talked about a lot of this last week, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the background. The tourism piece of ARPA fits into the responding to negative economic impacts section of eligible expenses. Like I mentioned last week, that consists of a total of $24.5 million allocated dollars in those four categories that you see there, $16 million of which is to go to tourism. Recipients of ARPA funds can use the state and local fiscal recovery fund funding to provide aid to industries impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. There's two ways that you can identify whether an industry is impacted by the pandemic. Number one, if the industry is in travel, tourism, or hospitality, there's a presumption there that there's an impact. So that's what brings us here. There's an analysis that you can go through to decide if other industries are impacted by the pandemic, which includes looking at whether they experienced at least 8% employment loss from pre-pandemic levels, or if the impact that they've seen is comparable to what you've seen in the tourism industry. Eligible uses within that responding to impacted industries is aid to mitigate financial hardship, such as supporting payroll costs, lost pay and benefits for returning employees, support of operations and maintenance of existing equipment facilities, COVID-19 mitigation and prevention measures, and then other projects that undergo an analysis where you identify that there's a public health or economic impact and you design a response that addresses that. That could be a program, service, capital expenditure, and it should be proportional to the harm that you're trying to address. So we've got 3 entities that were recipients of funds from the county for our first section of tourism dollars that we're going to talk about here today. And then later on, hopefully not too much further down the road, we'll talk about part 2 of our tourism program, which is going to respond to the impact and the Civil Rights National Monument in the 4th Avenue Business District. So we've got here with us today Josh Bryant, who's the CFO from the World Games. They've already been awarded funds from the county back in February when we also approved some other dollars, but since they're a piece of this puzzle, we invited them here today. And then we've got John Oros and Tad Snyder here with us to represent the BJCC Convention and Visitors Bureau. The World Games received a $2.5 million beneficiary agreement, or had one approved on February the 17th. There's a broad list of eligible uses with that, but it's all associated with the 1-year delay of the games due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which also caused the Tokyo Olympics to be postponed. So Josh, if you want to join us up here and just talk a little bit about the impact that your organization had and how this will help us respond to that. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Justin. As mentioned, Josh Bryant, CFO for the World Games 2022, loan executive for Regions, so pro bono work, if you will. Just to let you know your money's going to the right places. We certainly appreciate it. One of the biggest things that obviously as Justin led to with travel and tourism has been, for the World Games very specifically, is the 12-month extension of operations. As anybody know who runs business and operates, you've got expenses that are associated with that. $4.6 million roughly we had expenses inside of that year due to people. So people, places, and things, if you will. About $2.6 million in just our staff. We have roughly 30 full-time and part-time staff. Every one of them stayed on with us through the games. We did not have any scenario where we had to put anybody on furlough or take anybody off the rolls due to the pandemic and all of these funds. We thankfully had a war chest building up to most of our expenses being in this last 3 to 4 months as we get to the games. But these funds specifically were able to allow us to continue to do that as opposed to cutting people a year ago, closing the offices, which would have impacted some of our other partners in the room. We maintained and actually improved 16,000 square feet inside of the forum at the BJCC as well. So a great legacy gift for our partners as well. They have an improved office space for the next event that comes to town, which is ultimately what our goal is here to absolutely nail it for the city and the county. It's ultimately the economic impact of these games and other events that are going around, especially the games. Birmingham City hotels are booked. I don't know if you tried to go out and look for a hotel around here during July, but there aren't any. So the hotels are beginning to creep out, on out into the Trustfuls, on out into the McAdories, into those areas. So we're beginning to direct people out through the rest of the county from a hotel perspective for those folks that are beginning to visit us, plus some excellent programs that we have for a lot of restaurants to be able to loop in. Because again, if you've been to the restaurants here during the games this weekend, you see everything's packed in uptown. It's a wonderful thing to see after 2 years of this. So again, about $4.6 million is where we were from a people, places, and things perspective. Going forward, we have a lot of forward impacts through this pandemic, unfortunately, as well, that specifically have to do with workforce and inflation. We've seen another spike of roughly $3.5 million due to inflationary impacts. Most of our operations expenses going forward have to do with construction. Construction involves fuel, involves heavy equipment, involves trucks. All of these things are almost completely unavailable right now, as over the last year and a half, they've been mostly booked at about 120% capacity. But now the fuel costs double. Their labor costs are increased significantly as well. Most of our construction bids are coming in about double what they were 12 months ago, which is rough. So our impacts will continue on certainly through the rest of this year. Any questions?
Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. And since he's not here today, I probably would be remiss if I didn't mention that Commissioner Knight represents the county on the World Games Board, as well as the board for the Convention and Visitors Bureau, who we are going to have next. The Convention and Visitors Bureau, Birmingham, has a contract for you today. It's a $4 million subrecipient agreement, where funding will be used to carry out programs to advertise and to bring in more tour conventions and events here to Birmingham. There's a broad list of eligible uses within that. And we've got John Orros here with us today, who has some of his own slides. If you follow along, in fact, with him, John.
Thanks so much, Justin, and good morning, everybody. And it's good to see everybody back and being back face to face and meeting together. As Justin alluded to, I want all of you to kind of think back on where we were 2 years ago, exactly at this time. We were going through something totally unprecedented in our industry. Not only in our industry, but in all of our lives. Travel was put on hold, tourism was put on hold. Meetings were canceled, events were canceled, tournaments were canceled, family reunions were canceled. People couldn't go to funerals and visit and be with loved ones during those times because they couldn't travel. Think about our mentality at that time and what it meant. Travel and tourism is always about people, and it's about money, and it's about money, dollars that can be spent in local economies, but it is all about us. We all value that part of our lives where we can do that because it's about life experiences. During that time, we lost numerous life experiences. And I think these numbers bear some of these statistics out. What we do is very, very important here. We are an economic driver here. Travel and tourism is very important to our local economy and our national economy. Some of these statistics that you're looking at up here, just in dollars and cents, This will show you the impact that travel and tourism had on state and local tax revenues between the years 18, 19, and 20. Up until March 11th of 2020, I think for 5 consecutive years, we had experienced in both tourism and hospitality record-setting years. Each year was better than the previous year. And then March 11th, 2020 hit. We were on target to have another record year in 2020. And then the bottom dropped out. That had significant impact on not only our local lives, but also on many of our residents and on our tax revenues here, as you can see. In 2018, over $251 million was generated in state and local tax revenue from visitors coming to Birmingham and our municipalities in Jefferson County and spending their hard-earned dollars in our local industry. And that, of course, generated a tremendous amount of tax revenue that was distributed equally through the city, the county, and the state. In 2019, the number went up to $264.7 million. And then you can see what happened in 2020. It dropped, lost $82 million, basically, in local tax revenues because of the loss of tourism in 2020, in state and local tourism. And you can see in 18, 19, and 20, when it came to the local revenues, and that's city and county revenues, you can see the drop in tax revenues from 2018 to 2020. Substantial.
What tax base does that represent? Where is it? What's the source of the tax revenue?
The source of the tax revenue is lodging tax primarily.
Just lodging?
But, well, also, yeah, and general sales tax too. So,
General sales tax was
I think that what happened is that a lot of the sales tax revenue generated by visitors that went to the retail side was made up for in online shopping, and also from the food perspective, it was also made up. Also, you had with let's say ordering online and things like that, and so you had that impact. So it was a wash, but visitor spending actually coming into the community and spending money in our restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. That was, yeah. Now we don't actually have the year-end numbers yet for 21. We're getting those now. But when you're talking about general tourism statistics, any other questions about that?
No.
Okay. I think when you're talking about general tourism statistics here, you can see that in as far as where we lost a significant amount of this money, and these dollars these numbers came from Dr. Kevin Darabi, who does the state economic impact analysis for the state Department of Tourism, and he also does ours also. But when it came to, you can see the large areas where it dropped. Transportation generated $977.9 million in revenue for Birmingham and Jefferson County in 2019, and you can see the significant drop in 2020. And that includes ground transportation, taxis, Uber, Lyft, motor coaches, shuttles, etc. In recreation, and I think you'll probably hear about this from Tad, recreation dollars dropped significantly, as you can see. Overall, recreation, we consider that to be visiting attractions, going to events, concerts, sporting events, etc. Movies, so on and so forth. Retail, and this is from a tourism perspective, as Commissioner Stevens alluded to. The retail revenue dollars dropped from $236.1 million to $135.5 million. And as all of us know, our restaurant industry was just absolutely crushed and devastated, and still has not quite completely returned. You can see the loss of revenues from the experience in our lounges and our restaurants and our eating establishments. As far as lodging is concerned, we all know what happened with lodging. Fewer visitors coming into the community. Then you have a significant decline in hotel revenues that are generated, and And all of this equates into jobs lost within that sector. Next slide. All told, the economic impact of travel and tourism in Jefferson County between 19 and 20 dropped 39.7%. This is actual spending by visitors coming to Birmingham and our 35 municipalities in Jefferson County. That was a $1 billion loss in revenue. Next slide. You can see the impact on direct employment. In 2019, of course, there was a huge surge within the first 2 months of job loss, primarily from the tourism and hospitality industry, not just locally, but nationally and around the world. We were employing, in 2019, we directly employed 33,874 employees. And in 2020, you can see the significant drop of people that lost jobs during that time. Now, we appreciate the consideration for these funds, these ARPA funds. It's a long time coming for our industry. We would like to concentrate our efforts where we basically have the greatest impact on bringing new events and opportunities to our community. In meeting and convention sales, we have a team that's deployed against that very important market that has still not come back to 2019 levels. On both the regional and national association, convention and trade show side, it's still not back to 2019 levels. It's slowly coming back, but it's back to about 50% of what it was. The corporate meeting side is not yet back, but yet it is coming back also. So we want to make sure that we are, with the sea of competition, with all of these cities competing for visitor dollars, we want to make sure that we are front and first and foremost in their eyes as far as our presence at trade shows, being in a lot of the trade publications that are tailored to the buyers of these types of events that can bring them to our industry, that is meeting and convention planners and exhibition managers. Expanding our trade show presence at the major trade shows that we go to that are marketplaces to attract buyers that are looking at different destinations to plan their sports tournaments, their meetings, and their conventions. Of course, sports sales and marketing. This is a pay-to-play business, as is the meeting and convention side too. It is a pay-to-play business. All of these convention planners, they represent events that bring in millions of dollars into the community. As we all know, for example, the World Games, and in 2025 we have the World Police and Fire Games coming to Birmingham and Jefferson County, generating millions of dollars in our local economy. So we have to pay bid fees for those types of opportunities. We have to pay subsidies. We have to pay for convention space. We have to pay for sponsorships. We have to pay for all these different things in order to be attractive, to be considered as a destination when it comes to where these convention planners or event planners are typically looking at when they're looking and trying to decide how they're going to pick a destination to host their event. Group sales, student tours, reunions, and international programs. We have a department that's devoted to that. A lot of the motor coaches that you see over at the Institute, the Civil Rights District, those are student tours. And that's a market that we target very specifically through trade shows and also direct marketing in their trade publications. Our international programs that we share, the international visitors, even though that segment has been deeply affected by both COVID and also by the war between Russia and Ukraine, it is a viable market for us, and it's a big potential market for us because of our civil rights history and also because of our golf and our great food. Marketing and communications, back when April of 2020 hit and the bottom had fallen out, we said, how are we going to stay in the game? What are we going to do here? Everybody is canceled. Nobody's traveling. What are we going to do? But there were certain segments that were traveling. And in our world, there's 50 reasons as to why people travel. They go to meetings, they go to weddings, they go on business travel, they go to business conventions. There's 50 to 1. They go to visit family and friends, etc. But there were two segments that started to travel in June of that year. Leisure traffic, people driving through, people wanting to get out of the house and get away, going to the beaches, et cetera, that started to come back. And then when the restrictions were lifted, youth sports came back. And all of a sudden, youth sports, that's the people down in Hoover know. Youth sports lifted that community up. And it started filling hotel rooms on weekends down there and bringing visitors into our community. And those two segments kept us ahead of other destinations that have been devastated, that lost all their meetings and conventions. Nashville, Tennessee, for example, the regional tourism mecca for so many people because of their infrastructure were crushed because they lost all of their national conventions. Marketing and communications, so we are going to step out. We're going to be advertising in lifestyle magazines in the region. We're going to expand our digital advertising reach into markets that are within a 12-hour driving radius of Birmingham and Jefferson County. So we are absolutely, and targeting travel journalists also. All the travel media that you see, the travel coverage, that we generate that through our travel department. So when you see a Condé Nast award that comes out, our director of media relations has wined and dined that travel while they're here and taken them around to the great sites in Birmingham and Jefferson County. And then finally, research. I want our organization to be the go-to place for tourism research. Right now, we're very, very light on that. And I think that all of the people that are in decision-making or have decision-making responsibilities in this area, when it comes to wanting to develop our tourism product, that they have the most up-to-date information that can allow them to make good business decisions about whether or not a certain idea will work to bring new visitors to our community. I'll give you an example. There's one program that we're looking at. It's quite expensive, but it's worth it. We'll be able to geofence around all of our attractions and our convention centers. And we'll be able to tell, just by cell phone data, where all of these people are coming from. So there may be markets out there that we're missing that we need to be able to target that are new markets that could bring more visitors to our community. So, with that,
That's a very, very thorough explanation. Certainly appreciate that. Okay. Did you receive any direct calls that you have to lay off anyone during this COVID crisis? You know, I've seen that throughout.
What we did was we cut programs, but we did not cut people, because what we did cut salaries and benefits. And the reason that we did that was, at the time, if you remember, everybody in our industry was saying, 3 months from now it's coming back. And then 3 months came and it didn't come back. 3 months from then it's coming back. Now what's happening is that we have a full staff. And other DMOs and CVBs around the country laid off all their staffs and they lost all their people. Now they can't find people.
I understand.
So I think that we made a brilliant decision.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm moving to the agenda.
Move to the agenda.
Oh, before you say anything, I mean, we can do all that, but I want to say something.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. You're so kind. I'm very happy with what I'm hearing this morning. Being the fact that in recent months that I've traveled to certain places, and my concern was that I felt that we needed to do more to be competitive in Alabama. And so I'm encouraged this morning with what I'm hearing, because you have to be intentional. These different entities that come here, they're not just coming because, you know, no one reached out to them. It's because of the fact that they did. And that intentionality, to me, is what I think is going to help us to get back to where we were, and a little better. So I wanted to say that to you, because I was listening very intensely to some of the things like with your marketing budget and some other things that it's going to take in order to get us kind of out of the slump, so to speak. But I do know that there are other parts of Alabama. I was sharing this with the Chair of Economic Development. There are other parts of Alabama that are very intent on what it takes in order to move their county forward. And we've got to be equally as intentional, but it takes money. If you don't have money, that's just a failed program.
It takes money and it takes research and it
Correct.
takes understanding what the market wants. The failures that I've seen, not here, but in other destinations, is where people have great intentions and they make decisions where the market demand was not there for their idea. And that's where research comes in. And people in positions of authority can make very bad and serious decisions with all the right intentions because they don't have the right research. So,
Appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. 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 Thank you very much.
John, that was great. I appreciate that. Our last visitor with us here today is Pat Snyder from the Birmingham Jefferson Convention Complex. BJCC had one $500,000 subrecipient agreement approved back on February 17th. The same day the World Games was approved. That was to support the USFL football league, and it's to be used to support expenses generated with that. Today, we've got a $6 million subrecipient agreement before you. This is going to be used to continue a planned expansion and upgrade of tourism, travel, and hospitality facilities that were delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which is one of the eligible categories. These are capital expenses. It's going to be some renovations to the Sheraton Hotel that is owned by the BJCC and a parking lot that was that needed some work done to it. So Pat, would you like to join us up here and talk a little bit about that?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. John did such a great job covering this whole what I would say. Keep this pretty short.
Not with the item.
Thank
you've got more, Tad.
you. Kind of just,
We'll go to a little more.
just to kind of recap, in March of 2020 and what the COVID-19 pandemic became, there are very few things that could effectively shut down what the BJCC does for the community. And that was the one thing that we did. So immediately, in response to what became a dramatic loss of business and cancellations and what you can see going forward, we saw roughly an 80% decrease in our staff. We had 80% of our fixed costs for people and utilities. So we had no choice but to get the curtail costs quickly. At the same time, we had begun two projects we're working the benefits of now with the construction of the Texas Stadium and the renovation of Legacy Arena. The funding for those largely came through dedicated tax collections that go through the county, were pledged to debt service. We had to go into reserve $6.9 million just to maintain those debt service payments in the county. That required us to defer some planned projects that were part of the overall expansion, part of the Sheraton Birmingham renovated. This parking lot was to be constructed next to the stadium. So, that's kind of working towards identifying these two projects that could qualify for these funds. They're really making up for two projects that were planned to be funded through existing BJCC funds that had to be, we had to go into reserves to make those payments, so those had to be deferred. So, glad to answer any questions about that.
You moved. Second. All in favor, say aye.
I do still have.
You do have a question?
I do have a question, though.
Yes, ma'am.
Kind of unrelated, but somewhat, I think is doable in this setting. For our outdoor events over there at the stadium,
Yes, ma'am.
you all have a plan in place in the event of inclement weather?
Yes, we did. Actually, we exercised that plan this weekend. The USFL games, weather did not contribute towards, leading into Saturday night's event ended up being nice weather. It wasn't looking that way too high before that. Sunday, we did have the game having to be postponed due to lightning in the area. If we get within an 8-mile radius of lightning strike, we have to call that game. We have to postpone that event. And we have to take care of the people who are in the stadium, so we have to remove everyone safely. So it's actually a good test of kind of those plans for dealing with inclement weather and outdoor events. Fortunately, it was lightning and rain and nothing more severe than that, but yes, there's a detailed weather plan that we actually work with Jefferson County EMA and the City of Birmingham as well. 3 tabletop exercises leading into the first game with Fox Sports, with Jefferson County EMA, with the City of Birmingham, with our team, going through every one of those types of scenarios.
So only one last thing that I will say is that I would like for us to consider some of the things that we probably need to brush up on since we got so much bigger activity that's going to be coming into the area. And that we'll kind of listen carefully to some of the things that we need to modify to make better. And yeah, I think you know what I'm talking about, moving forward so that everybody has a great experience when they come for all of this stuff that we're trying to do.
Every time we have an event, especially in the stadium being a new venue, even though we've had it open roughly 6 months now, every time there's a review and debrief of the event, what went well, what didn't, and obviously there's opportunities to improve always, even in the arena we've done 50 years. So to your point, yes, they're very committed.
Thank you, Ted.
Okay, next on the agenda is the Cook Green update. Then we'll move back over to the first of the agenda, road strands.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity. For those I haven't had the honor to meet, I'm David Randall, Chief Strategy Officer for UAB Medicine, but probably more importantly, I have the privilege to serve as the CEO for the Cooper Green Healthcare Authority. We wanted to provide just kind of a quick overview on progress today on a new clinic. So important, this has been in the makes for years. It was part of the original master service agreement, so we're moving forward with that. 2 takeaways that I think are important, and Laura's going to share a little more detail. One, we are expanding services to our enrollees, to the citizens of the county, beyond what we're doing today. I'm very excited about that. Second, I think this clinic is part of the foundation of really transforming how we provide care to our vulnerable populations. And quite frankly, I think we will be the national model of how to serve these populations in a very effective and efficient manner. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to Laura to kind of walk through some of the details in our progress.
Good morning. Just to follow up with what David said, I agree, we're doing great things over there. It's been very fun doing it too. The one thing we wanted to bring to you today was some more detail about the new building and the plans for the new building, in the hopes that we're getting you enough information to generate questions and to figure out what else we need to bring to you, because we plan to come back on May 24th and pursue the bond issue discussion. Okay, so that's what we want to do, is give you enough information to start that conversation. So this first slide you see is executive summary. What it is a elevator speech for what we're doing. It's covering the fact that we have planned for 206,000 square feet. That's less by about 158 square feet from our current space. The total cost is $120 million. That is $89 million that we'll be helping to require through the bond issue. The other $31 million we will get paid for with reserves, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on that later. And then the completion is also covered here. We are expected to start on the building possibly at the end of this year, certainly the beginning of 2023, and then be complete by the first quarter of 2025, ready to move in. Okay? And then, of course, it also covers the justification statement. If we go into the next slide, that has some more detail on it. The big thing, which and you're all aware of, but it's an old building. We just simply cannot be efficient in that building. The utility costs are outrageous. It's not designed for an energy efficient world, if you will. And the size of the spaces are a burden on our staff. It's not safe. We can't control the flow through the building very well. And if you think about a nurse, for example, when they're literally walking all the time because the spaces are so large and not designed for ambulatory care. So we're really going to gain a lot, not just the aesthetics, but the efficiency will be much better. We'll be able to keep our people safer by controlling the flow. We'll obviously come up to code, which we cannot meet some of those requirements right now. And moving into a new building also allows us to centralize some of the services that we long wanted to centralize, and this will allow us to do that. So all good things. And the one big piece of the impact, if you remember last time I was here, we passed out these strategic plans that we worked on. And I don't know if you can see it from there, but some of them are highlighted. There's some of our strategy that we can't accomplish in this building. It's not possible, right? There's just some things that are barriers to strategy. So that's the other major reason that we're ready to move forward on this. Okay, this one again, I think you're familiar with this, but on the left-hand side there, that is the current state of the parking deck. You can't park there. It is gone. We are making big rocks and little rocks to reuse the material there on the ground. And that location now that you see on the left-hand side will be the footprint of the new clinic and the parking deck. So they'll both fit on that area with the parking deck being on the back side of the 7th Avenue side and the clinic being on the front side of the 6th Avenue side. Okay, this is talking about some of our assumptions and some of the considerations that went into the building program. We're going to grow. We have been growing, we're going to continue to grow. We know that the need is there. Just the census and all the data out there shows the need is there. We just have to reach the people and get them in to see it. So we have projected to double our enrollment in the next 5 years. To do so, we've saved the 5th floor. You'll see this in the schematics here in a second, but the 5th floor of this new building is just shelf space. So cheap space for this project, but able to move into as needed. Okay? And David referred to the new and expanded services. A couple of those that he's talking about are MRI. We don't have MRI right now on site. It's one of our, it is the main primary thing that we refer out and pay for at UAB, St. Vincent's, Brookwood. So we want to bring that in-house to make it convenient for our patients. We also are adding dental hygiene. Cahaba Dental is one of our tenants that serves our patients, and they currently do extractions and fillings. They want to do dental hygiene, and we think our patients deserve that, so we want to give them a little bit extra space to do that. And then if you've been to the facility, you've probably been to our rehab facility. They call it a gym. Rehabs are called gyms. It's totally insufficient. We simply don't have the space to grow that gym. So that's another thing that increases in size, almost doubles this new space, which would be great. Okay? And then, Helen, you mind going back to one more slide, just backwards, one slide? That last one I wanted you to see about the tenants. We have kind of prioritized tenants, if you will. So current tenants and incoming tenants. We looked at whether we share patients, whether they're getting services from both us and them, and marked them as high priority, and they do. We also looked at surveys that we did with our patients and our staff to determine, we simply asked, what do you want to see go with us? What do you want to see us not take with us, right? You got that feedback. And then the last criteria we used for making a decision on tenants was the space that's there, like, do they fit, right? So if we've gone through these criteria, what's left and what fits, right? So there you'll see the ones that are additional new tenants that we tend to take over with us. The ones that are, there now that are going over, just moving over. And then that last one are the ones that are going to source other space, and that includes the coroner's office. Okay, so they are looking at new space. Okay, the next one, these are the stacking diagrams. It's just a quick visual of where things fit, if you will. So this is first, second, and third floor, and the primary services that are there. That third floor is the primary clinical space. That's where most of our clinics will be. And of course, the first floor is the one with the highest traffic. People who get in and out, like urgent care, pharmacy. Next one is the 4th, 5th, and 6th. On this one, you'll see the 4th is tenant space. The only group green, if you will, space there is the oncology clinic. We wanted it on the 4th floor because we wanted them to have that wall of windows. Those patients are there for 4 or 5 hours. So we just thought it was best suited to have those patients get some vitamin D while they're getting infusions. The 5th floor is that shelf space, and the 6th floor is mechanical.
I want to change the name to Penthouse, so I don't think that it sounds good coming out of a governmental organization.
We all fight over who gets the penthouse.
I thought that was his office.
It can be. Okay, this is not representative of our design, or our materials, or our colors. We haven't got that far in the design process, but we did want to give you an idea of big picture design goals. So, for example, that middle picture on the bottom shows the sliding doors. That's something we will have. It just simply saves room. You can use those, you can have smaller exam rooms and use the whole room. That top picture is a waiting room area that will be much like ours. Shared waiting along, again, window wall, a trauma-informed type space. That right one is a infusion clinic that our same architect just built out a few years ago. The idea there is it's open, it's easy to access by the clinicians, but it's also private, a little bit of both. Okay? So the idea is just to be efficient, open, engaging spaces, comfortable lighting. That's our design goal. Okay? Okay, moving into the 5-year financial projections. And let me point out too that we do have Steve Payne with us today. He's the CFO for the authority board. So if you have questions, I brought him along because he actually knows what he's talking about. So don't hesitate to ask if you got questions, okay? Again, the enrollment we project to grow, so we can consider that in the projections. The tax revenue has been fairly steady for us, so we put a conservative growth projection there of 2.5%. Patient care revenue, we expect our payer mix to stay about the same as we transition. We do think there's still improvements to make in the insurance billing, so we think that billing will offset some of our clinic costs. You'll see this a little bit more detailed as well moving into May 24th when we come back, but there is a projected $23.5 million in the first 1-year projection that is a positive operating income, right? And then by year 5, that's around $10 million. And in that year 5 would include your first year of bond debt and also the depreciation on the building and equipment, okay? Then that fifth bullet there, one of the standards by which we gauge our financial health, if you will, is how many days cash on hand we have. And we're trying to maintain that 250 days cash on hand. We're able to do that throughout the build and moving in time period in that 5 years. So that gives us a lot of comfort knowing that we'll be able to maintain that.
So you're considering that your reserve 250 days that you have on hand, what does that represent? A day's operations or?
Daily expense, operating expense, which, all of our expense is internal expense for clinic operations, but then also when our enrollees go outside and we have those purchase services, it's the total daily operating expense.
So that also salaries and?
Yes, that's 100%.
Total operation?
Yes.
Thank you.
And again, this is the next one is that total project cost. Let's move on to the next slide, they'll give you a little bit more detail. That top line is what we will be coming back for on the 24th. The rest, the middle, to make up the difference between 89 and 120, we intend to pay out of reserves. So it's about $31 million that we intend to pay out of reserves. And of course, you can see all the things that are included in reserves there.
What are your reserves? What are your reserves?
Current reserves, about $65 million.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
So that's about an annual, that's about 1 year's.
That's
1 year revenue. isn't it?
Well, revenue's what, 70 million now?
Roughly about $70 million.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on that piece before we close up? This is the last thing, okay? Okay, so next steps is we want to answer questions. We want you to digest it, let us know what questions you have, mainly so that we can get the information accurate and back to you, okay? Again, we'll be back on the 24th. We are continuing with project design back at Cooper Green. We're well into designing. I think we only have a couple of programs that we still need to sit down with the engineer and the architect team. We're pre-qualifying the general contractor now. We're in that process. And then just a reminder that we hope to be 2025 in a new building and do an open house for y'all to come see.
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What are we doing as relates to employee relations? And I know you and I have talked about that. What are we doing to strengthen this transition, we know that it's been, what, now, a year and a half?
Almost 2 years.
2 years? So, and I still keep kind of hearing, we need to work on that. Are there any kind of plans in place that we're working between the two entities, or basically the one entity now, in order to make that user-friendly?
I think so. You tell me what you think. We have, so one of our strategic goals that we just identified is to be employee focused. So we have 5 like detailed things that we're going to be following under that, right? The other thing that's underway right now, we've done lots of recognition and morale programs that are pretty well established now, both kind of employee of the month and then recognition for years of service. So we're trying to call out those good things, plus that loyalty and dedication more than they ever have. The other thing that I think is going to be, it's just getting started, but I think it's going to be really beneficial to kind of connect those dots, if you will, between the two. We gained from UAB's expertise already in one-on-one conversations, but we're moving into also being educated by some of their experts. So for example, the nurses are engaging in their Success Pays program, so they get basically free education throughout the year to be from CEUs. And then we're going to pay for their certification test to kind of grow their knowledge, but you know, piggybacking on what UAB is already doing. So I think so. With that said,
So what I'll do is I'll talk to you more about it offline, if you don't mind.
no problem.
And I'll give you that courtesy. And then I'll be more specific, and then you can be able to give your undivided attention
Yeah, I would,
to those specific needs. Does that
yes,
make
and I would
sense?
like to know that. Yes, absolutely.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, especially thank you. It's good information for us to be able to all the way around on the ARPA. We requested that earlier on, and it's good to get updates on the hospital as well. So thank you for bringing it.
I'm gonna go ahead with my District 3 report on the business. Have a community infrastructure grant for a walking track. Brookside, I have a release on
Well, we can actually move 1 through 4.
1 through 4. I have a motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Let's go back to the first one, road and transportation. JC CEO conveyance to the city of Birmingham. Theo, you need to address something, you got that? Okay.
And, as you know, Commissioners, the JCCEO has vacated the premises in that building. And been working with, we own half the building, the city owns half the building. And we've come to an agreement on, they want to purchase your half. They have offered $150,000 for your consideration. And thanks to Theo and Shauna, we've got a 10-year reversionary clause in that. It has to be used for a public purpose for 10 years or it reverts back to us. And I point out, looking at the operating cost of just owning and paying utilities, security, and maintenance, probably cost us our half about between $250,000 and $500,000 a year. So I feel like this is a good proposal for you to consider at this time.
So then,
Motion. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I
Thank
had a question about it though, Mr. President. So if I'm hearing you correctly, our interest in it only was regarding JCCEO, is that right? And since that's no longer there, and seemingly it's no longer go back there, is that what? Okay, all right, I get it. Okay, and that's fair market value?
It's not, and that's why we have that reversionary clause in there. They have to use it for governmental public purpose. And we put it in there for a little bit longer than normal, I think for 10 years, and they agreed to it so that we could go less than fair market value.
Okay, but the building itself, does it belong to the city of Birmingham or does it belong to the county? I thought you were conveying.
Half belongs to the county and half belongs to the city. So we're conveying our half interest.
Right, which means now the city owns it.
Right.
Is that right? Okay, and then you just got a clause in there that for 10 years, you gotta make sure that this kind of operation is inhabited in the building.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, there you go. Let Mike understand.
There we go, thank you. Disposal of surplus, county vehicles and heavy equipment.
Move it.
2, 3, county inventory assets, data collection and analysis.
Move it.
That's manager, all right, we got that one, let's keep going. This one, Matt, may talk about a little bit, but extend Morgan Road widening project.
So the original schedule was set up with a clause in the contract with AlDOT that stopped time for the prime contractor while the utilities were doing their relocation work.
Yeah.
So what this does is extend the contract for the CE&I group, now that we know what that time extension is, and to cover the remainder of the contract. So this is participating in this finalizes that
Completion date.
yep.
This is another one of those, it's like, Pat Chapel.
It's a
Yeah.
day count, not a fixed completion date.
And-
But it was done that way deliberately because of the unknowns with the utilities. So we didn't want the contractor bidding that risk, so this is the way the contract is set up.
Get me within a year.
Where 2023 is the completion date, September of 23.
Okay. And, all right, let's go on 5 and 6. We have a paving agreement with the city of Clay and a debris MOU for the city of Gardner. Motion been made and seconded, all in favor say aye. Thank you very much, county attorney. Change in the AO 18-1 in the minutes from the commission meeting.
Yes, this just removes the requirement of 10% that the grant be restricted 10% for the previous year's revenues.
Been moved, second. You moved it. Who's second?
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. Do you have anything? Anything additional?
No, there's nothing additional, just some information. One, our HR department has gotten prepared for us to do college internships for our engineers. So we have some departments. I wanted to mention to you before they sent out a flyer to you, so you can help us recruit college students to come and work, and we can start trying to recruit young talent. So that'll be coming to you from HR. And also, we're looking at starting back the recognition program where if y'all will allow us, we can bring employees back to commissioning and give them a service bin for years of service. We're also trying to work on some type of employee of the quarter type deal too, but if y'all want to, we'd like to continue with the service bin award from you all during the regular commissioning. Now, I know it takes time, but I think it means a lot to our employees for y'all to recognize them.
Let's just go on now, thank you. Let's do Commission District 1, 2, and then we'll come back and do those.
All right, so we have 2 items, basically.
Did you do
I did, yes, right?
You want me to?
Please.
All right, so we have for Public Works, Community Services, and Intergovernmental Relations Committee have one item, which is B.H. Craig Construction LLC. Basically, it's about pump stations 1 and 2. This is going to be in Gardendale for future growth. The ask right now is $4,372,000. Do we have any questions concerning that item? And is that a David Dennard or Cal? Is that something that you'd like to add to that particular item?
I don't have anything to add. David should be online.
I'll second.
Okay, it has been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
We have 1 Birmingham Board of Education.
I'll
Okay, all right, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Has been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Community and Development and Human Resources.
Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. The first item is a license agreement with North Mill Manor Greenfield Heights Leeds. This is the revocable license agreement. Basically, the county will be only reimbursing the licensee for general liability and any deductibles. Number 2 is an agreement with S&W Construction. We're just adding another $120,000 to our roofing contract. As you all know, from time to time, you're able to call our offices with people that are having roof issues, and we're able to take care of them out of this fund. Number 3 is Soho Interiors, James T. Shirley and Holly G. Hart Shirley, which is our EDA loan modification. Basically, it authorizes the commission president to execute all documents relating to this issue. Number 4 is Cooperative Downtown Ministries, which is an ESG grant. Cooperative Downtown Ministries is a homeless shelter for men that are 18 years and older. Number 5 is One Roof Cares, Amendment number 3. The contract actually expires in June, and we're asking to extend this out until August. Number 6 is the Docena Community Center. The original scope of this project has been complete, but we have some additional funds, and the community has requested that we install a new canopy. I do want to do a pen and ink. It says requested amount $105,000. There's no additional funds involved with that. Number 7 is Girls Inc., which is a CDBG public service agreement, which is a STEM program for low and moderate income people, and the amount of the request that will be paid for out of federal funds is $12,000. Number 8 is Legal Services of Alabama. Basically, they work with lower income people in doing legal work with the exception of criminal, and basically they do things like wills and end-of-life planning. The request for this agreement is $12,000. Number 9 is Child Care Resources, which is also going to be taken out of our CDBG public service funds. These are vouchers that we use to defray the cost of child care, and the requested amount to be paid out of our federal funds is $25,000. And the last item is with the traffic hydrant project. It's simply a cooperation agreement that we do on all of our projects, and there'll be $240,136 allocated to the project.
I move to approve.
Second. Madam Chair, before you go further, I did, if you don't mind, Dr. Hamilton, just for understanding, for items 1 and 6. Because I know we've been having some issues with that over there.
So it was a roof, yeah, so let me go to.
So are we finished, first of all, with that contractor and the work they were doing?
On Docena?
No, I'm talking about over here for North Smithfield Manor.
Oh, yes, we are.
Okay, so explain it to me.
So basically, we're doing license agreements for all of the storm shelters that the county owns.
Okay.
So that's simply what it is. It's basically an agreement with the neighborhood association for them to maintain that storm shelter.
Okay, all right.
And then it will cover the general liability insurance costs, so they'll get reimbursed for what they pay on that.
Okay, are there any dollars associated with, or is it legal, county attorney, for us to be able to support the neighborhood in that regard? They've been having some issues trying to keep up with the payment and due to certain things happening in the community, my understanding. Is that something that we as a district can support?
You have to be more specific about what you...
Like the insurance that you need, that's required to...
So this agreement, the county is going to reimburse them for the insurance. So they'll pay it and then they'll get reimbursed.
Okay, well, it seems like they have a problem with paying it, that's all.
Oh,
I talk more about that offline.
Okay.
Number 6, I know we've been working on that, about that roof for quite some time, but we finally finished with it.
It's finished, but we're just doing some additional works. They requested a canopy, and we're going to take the extra funds and take care of that.
If you don't mind, if you just share with me outside of the meeting,
okay,
the date that we finished that, because we were in the process now of putting something together for Docena.
Okay.
And I just
now, let me say, and to do this extra work, they're requesting an extra 90 days to do the extra work.
Oh, okay.
So
But the roof itself is complete.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
Second. Moves to Zone Finance, Judicial Emergency Management and Development, General Services. We got some out for it. Angela, you begin with unusual demand report, please?
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Item number 1 is our unusual demand report. Item 2, 3, 4, and 5 are our normal procurement card statement, purchasing agenda report, purchasing exception report, and encumbrance report. Are there any questions on those items?
Is there anything from your professional perspective that would be out of place or being unusual in any of those?
Not from my perspective.
There we go. That's what I will ask you. I'll move those one.
Okay, under Budget Management Office, we have our multiple staff development, individual staff development, and our information items.
Okay, we need to vote on that. 1 through 5. All in favor say aye. Aye. Names. BMO staff development.
BMO, we have multiple staff development, individual staff development, and information items.
I'll move it.
Have a motion, second, all in favor say aye. Aye. Board of Equalizations, income workers contract renewal. Resolution authorizing execution agreement with assessment advisors in the amount of $65,000 for one investment income worker software. I have no knowledge of that.
Commissioners, I can give you some information on that.
That'd be great, thank you.
Income is one of the approaches that we can use to establish value on commercial properties. So what Income Works does is supply us with local information on rent and expenses for those commercial properties, and we can use that as a tool to establish value.
Okay. Thank you. Move and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We have nothing from down to general services, VSC's fire and security inspection and maintenance. For repairs for various Jefferson County locations. Do we have anyone from general services on board?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
This is Tricia. I'm here. General Services has 4 items on the agenda, and the VSC Fire and Security Agreement is for the inspection, maintenance, and repairs for the fire alarm systems throughout Jefferson County portfolio.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, item number 2 is for diesel services. This is the kitchen hood cleaning. We're responsible for that for 3 locations in the Jefferson County portfolio for the kitchens that we manage.
Could you give us those locations?
Yes, that's the kitchen at the Birmingham Jail, Bessemer Jail, and Youth Detention.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The 3rd item is Pool and Company Architects. That is for facility support services for all of Jefferson County real estate. And the 4th item is a revenue generating agreement. It is for the municipal election for Mountain Brook.
I'll move items 1 through 4.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Commissioners,
Thank you.
I wanted to point out on number 3, I'm really excited about what they got going on. That is going to be basically an inventory of all of our an assessment of roofs, fixtures, chillers, and everything. And just kind of looking at the model, they looked at the jail, and at the end of the report, we'll know what improvements we can make to save on utility bills, efficiency of the bills, and that kind of thing. Just that one building is going to probably save us $250,000 a year in utility costs.
So that's absolutely will be a capital replacement plan.
It'll be a great capital replacement plan based on facts, and it's going to save us a lot of money.
Thank you. Down to tax assessor, I'm excited about this E-ring online exemptions for taxpayers. Hallelujah. I don't know what needs other explanation. Motion second, all in favor say aye. All right. Commissioner Knott has 3.
Move items 1 through 3.
Motion's been made and seconded, all in favor say aye. Aye. County Attorney, do you have anything?
I do not.
County Manager, do you have anything? Okay, the first week of the USFL was a complete success. Everyone, all of those thousands of people that are online listening to this broadcast of your convention, we want you to come back on Saturday night to see the Birmingham Stallions play. Let's fill the stadium one more time. And pray for another win, and 1 week at a time. That's the way we'll do it. And build on each previous experience, and appreciate what everyone's done, the commission and their commitment. Fox Sports is pleased. The BJCC is doing a good job, and we appreciate what everyone's done. Being no further business, this meeting's adjourned. The next meeting will be in Bessemer as per statute.
And it will be in Judge.
Is that this thing?
Different words.
It will be in Judge, different room. So, y'all look for a Judge, different room, we'll see what we do.
Yeah.